Everyone and welcome. We'll call the Tuesday, March 10th, 2020 Homestead Community Redevelopment Agency meeting to order at about 5:03 PM and ask the clerk to call the roll, please. Here.
Vice Chairwoman Fairclough Staggers. Chairman Lossner.
Here. Thank you. Are there any deletions or deferrals? None. Okay. Very good. All right. We'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of the February 11th, 2020 CRA Board meeting. Moved by Board Member Roth. Seconded by Board Member Bailey. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next item is car number 2848, tab 7, discussion regarding the 866 Southwest 7th Street, the property that we all commonly refer to as the shotgun property. Is that you, Madam Clerk, or will that be? Okay. Welcome. And we'll let the record reflect that our newest board member, Avila, has joined us, and welcome to the party. You, Commissioner? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. In response to a 163 public notice published in August of 2018, Centennial Management and the Homestead Housing Authority submitted concepts to develop housing on 866 Southwest 7th Street, commonly known as the Shotgun Property. At the November 13, 2018 CRA Board meeting, each developer presented their respective concepts to the board. At the conclusion, each developer was asked to return for a second presentation after addressing the specific comments and requests of board members. The Homestead Housing Authority has withdrawn its proposal, and Centennial Management Corporation is here tonight to present its updated concepts for housing on the Shotgun property. Staff is seeking direction from the CRA board.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions, or we're going to have a formal presentation from the
Yes, sir.
applicant? Well, let's go to that if the applicant's ready, or the proposer, I'm sorry. The representatives of Centennial are ready to go forward. Thank you. We're ready when you are. If you start by giving us your name and address for the record.
Okay, well, hello everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. My name is Elizabeth Roque, and I'm with Centennial. If I stand up
Sure.
straighter, can you hear me? Is that
Yes.
okay? I'm with Centennial Management, 7735 Northwest 146th Street, Miami Lakes, Florida. Well, tonight we're here to talk about the Shotgun property. I'm very excited to be here, and again, thank you all for the opportunity. If you look on your presentation, we put name to be determined because we, after having discussions with everyone, we felt like, you know what? You guys should name it, not us. So whatever you guys want to do is fine with us. So who are we? Hold on. Who are we? We're Centennial Management. We have been in business for almost 40 years. We love what we do, and we have developed many properties over the last 40 years, and we have partnered with the cities of Hallandale, Miami Beach, Davie, and we're currently partnering with the Boynton Beach CRA and building a beautiful community of 124 units there. These are just some of our communities that we've built over the years. And if you look at the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they've all been done since 2015, and we have some coming out of the ground up until 2021. We have La Jolla Apartments, Orchid Estates, La Jolla Estates, Redland Crossings, Ocean Breeze, which is the Pompano, and Woodland Grove, which will be breaking ground soon. Okay, we have over 3,500 units, as well as approximately 900,000 square feet of commercial and retail space. I guess I can look at it up there. These are just some of our concepts. There's the Ocean Breeze East. We've got Stadium Tower Apartments in the city of Miami. There's a rendering of Orchid Estates, which is here in Naranja. And what are we proposing? Our overall development. 83 units, 3 floors of elderly community. We have an out parcel of retail along Southwest 8th Street. We want to put a park and sidewalks and large areas for people to walk around with benches. We want to offer elderly programs as far as being able to partner. Oh, well, I'll get back to it. To be able to partner with some of the local people in the community as far as being able to come in and do health checkups or be able to check on their blood pressure or transportation. We want to be able to, again, make this about your community. This is not about us. This is your community and what you're looking for here in Homestead. So we're here to facilitate what you need. And we want to reach out to local communities to be able to put in our out parcel for the retail and urgent care, a pharmacy. And again, I think there's so much room to be able to develop that area. And I think with discussions with all of us and being able to partner together, we can find the right solution, again, for your needs. This is an aerial view of what we're kind of proposing. And you can see that it's 3 stories. We've got a beautiful green space. The commercial space is an out parcel, 124 parking spaces, 83 units. And if I'm going too fast, just let me know. It's another aerial view. We have real wide sidewalks so people can walk around. We want to put benches out there, a lot of beautiful landscaping, balconies. Not sure if we want to do large balconies or Juliet balconies, depending on just how you want the community to look. There's another rendering of the kind of the front of the building. I think it's kind of pretty. Sidewalks, trees. We do a lot of landscaping, which makes it look really nice. Another view from the street. Here's your green space where you can put the benches and a water fountain and just to be able to kind of meander and enjoy being outside. This is kind of a rendering of what the retail space would look like. These are the units. We're proposing 1 and 2 bedroom units. And again, what are we proposing? What do we do? We're green certified with 15 SEER air conditioners, Energy Star appliance package, plumbing, Energy Star lighting fixtures, hurricane impact windows and doors, which is very important in South Florida, programmable thermostats, beautiful balconies, wood cabinets, granite countertops, tile floors, large walk-in closets, washers and dryer connections in all units, and window treatments. And we do a beautiful job building, and our units are absolutely beautiful inside. Proposing a multifamily elderly community with a beautiful retail space. Financing, we can do the sale or the 9%. A community room, we have a gym in the facility, we have an out parcel, a beautiful just community of bright, airy, makes you feel good when you come home. And again, we want to be able to jumpstart this. This is not about us, this is about your community and what you want, and we just want to be here to make it happen for you. And that's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Initially, and I'm certain there will be extensive questioning from all of the board members, but so that we're comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges, define for us in your industry what the elderly designation entails. What does it really mean?
Well, it's a 55 and older community is exactly what it means.
Okay. Does it prohibit or limit um, adult children from living there or children, or is this solely program, your source of funding limits it to
50
elderly use?
elderly use, 55 and older,
Okay, just across the board?
across the board. Now, okay, if an elderly person lived there and they had a caretaker and the caretaker was 45, um, I don't think anyone would have an issue if there was a caretaker taking care of someone that's there in the community. It's basically meant to be able to provide an environment where people don't have little children running around and families that they just want a little bit more peace and a little more, what do you want to call it? No
Sure.
kids.
Okay, appreciate that. Members of the board? Sure, Councilwoman Bailey?
Thank you, Mayor. I will start. So from the very beginning, I think that the most important things have been the design, the funding, the programs, and the retail space. And the only thing that I was still leaning a little more toward Homestead Housing was their programming and how they were already able to go out and talk to a few businesses for the retail component. And we spoke extensively about that. I do appreciate you sitting with me for so long. I think it was a very successful meeting. We even had a little impromptu visit to, was that Redland?
Uh, Orchid Estates.
Orchid Estates. And I'm incredibly impressed with the look of the outside of the building. I think that a lot of thought was put into that. The green space, I think is great. We've also seen you guys have been very successful in acquiring funding. But I think now what I'm most excited about is that you really seem to have a passion for the programming aspect of it. And, just the clubhouse, it was something more reminiscent of the Palace Gardens. And to be able to see that for the Southwest, I was really impressed with that. I think that the two biggest items that we need to focus on from here on out, if this does go through, is just really trying to reach out, especially in the Southwest, and see if we can offer any more opportunities to the local businesses, if they're interested in moving, and to just make sure that it's things that our seniors would be able to take advantage of and use.
Since our meeting, we've reached out to multiple local communities in the area. Some were fitness, yoga, CHI. I do have a letter from them. They sent me an email that they are having a program where they will be able to come to the community and do the health screenings, and they will also have transportation to be able to pick up the residents and take them to their doctor's appointments or their facilities. So we do have I don't want to call it commitment, but it's something that they do and they will provide to the community.
Okay, great. I had one question about the hurricane-resistant windows. What does that mean as far as what category hurricane could come through where the residents wouldn't have to worry about leaving the building?
Well, I believe that the impact windows would sustain, I mean, a 4 or a 5. I'm not positive I can get you that information, but it's not something that's not a secure, we're not chintzing on it, if that's what you mean. It's
Because I
a
know
good
there's a
window.
difference between impact and,
Hi, I'm
There you
Louis
go.
Squeeze. I could
More on the
answer that
construction side.
technical question a little better.
you, sir.
I believe all the windows are rated for 140 mile an hour.
Okay.
winds. I could be wrong, but I believe that.
thank you. I think that is all for me for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Let's talk a little bit about the potential funding sources and differentiate between the surtax and the self-funding. And if you go the surtax route, what does that mean financially? How much would the land costs end up being for the city versus the surtax? So can you break those two financial structures down?
Okay, thank you. One of them is 9% credits, which you get through the state of Florida. They're federal credits. And that, you get quite a bit of equity from the banks who usually buy the credits from you. to get CRA credits, and they invest in your project. They end up owning 99% of it, and you're just a developer with a 1% interest. When they do, with that, you could pay, with the financing, it's very competitive. They have like 50 applications this last cycle. 3 were funded in Dade County. They was set aside for the whole state for 3 for Dade. There's different fundings for like large counties, Dade County by itself, and then you have medium and small counties. Dade County gets an allocation of 3 again. There was 50 and 3 given out in Dade County of the 9%. We won one of them last year, just now, and it's going to be up in New Rancho, I could tell you that. It's a 150 unit project. We've had pretty good success with it. We're not guaranteed we win every year, but we've done pretty well with it. And then you have the sale program, and then you have this county surtax. Right now, when you use the sale and the county surtax, you could use them together or independent of one another. Those are tax-exempt bonds financing, of which you only get a 4% credit. So you're only able to raise about 45% or 50% of the, little less than 50% of the equity you can normally get under a 9% credit. So it makes everything a lot tighter with your financing. I think when I met with a few people and I expressed it to them, right now with these historical low rates, you might not even need state funding. You might be able just to do it right through the local bond and going through the county surtax program, which isn't nearly as competitive as the others.
So the county surtax program is, I feel, more advantageous for us because our appraised value was it 450,000?
Correct.
450,000.
455.
So through the
55.
county surtax, then that would mean what, 2.75?
No, that would be the 9% credits.
9, right, but we get more money for the land through the county surtax as opposed to
No, the
sale.
other way around. You get more money through the 9% credits to the state.
Through the state, through sale. I knew it was
Yeah.
one of them that
It's
we
just
get
the-
more money.
Yeah, just the
Right.
opposite way.
So, but you would apply for both of them simultaneously,
I could
correct?
fly, yeah, of course. Yeah, I'd be more than happy to. I do it
Okay.
anyway, because I apply for everything in the kitchen sink.
But with either one of them, we would potentially receive more money for the land in relation to how much the appraised value is for the land.
Either way, it's more money.
Either
than
way,
the
it's more
appraised
money.
value.
I wanted that to be clear. Either way, it's more money for the city as it relates to the amount that we would get for the land, the money we would get back for the land. Okay, those are all the only 2 questions I have for now.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Shelley?
Yeah, I guess kind of before I go into some of my questions too, I mean, what's the, I guess, staff or the board, I mean, what are we, for today, what's our decision points? Because I know at one point we had 2 people that were applying, so it's kind of giving you guys direction on maybe which way to go, which one to negotiate with all of them, one of them, or none of them, and then start the whole process over. So I guess what's the main goal out of today's meeting? What direction are you seeking?
Councilman, you could give us direction to go ahead and negotiate a deal with this group. So we're looking for that direction, if that's something you want us to do.
Then at that point, so a lot of these, the smaller details, and I guess the reason I'm asking the question before I ask questions is, you know, to what level of detail do I need to go into? Because a lot of this is going to come back before us then.
It would absolutely have to come back before us. I think tonight it would be good if you could all speak about the things that are important to you that you want to be part of the negotiation, and subsequently we would come back to you.
Okay, all right, thank you. And so one of the questions I do have as it relates to this project, you know, relates to the elderly, 55 or older. We've had some discussions about that. I know the last meeting we had, that was one of the priorities of a lot of us up here on council, was to make sure that that was an elderly housing versus, say, just open-ended housing. So are there any guarantees? That was one advantage of HHA, you know, the Homestead Housing Authority, is that they were using federal dollars that would require that property to be perpetually, as long as it was in existence, elderly housing, or for the purpose of which the application was applied for. I'm not sure about the programs that you're going through, whether or not there's a specific requirement that would provide us the protections that we wanted to make sure that 5 years, 10 years down the road, it didn't go from elderly housing to just multifamily housing. How do you guys plan to address that? Are you willing to address that?
Okay, that's a good question too, Commissioner. When we, okay, we could do it one or two ways. You could put a reverter clause in your deed that states out what you want. Remember, that's going to have to go to the equity providers and to the state of Florida, but the state of Florida is going to require a 50-year LURA. And the 50-year LURA is going to stay in existence for 50 years. It's much more stringent than anything you're going to write, and it's going to keep all our requirements to stay consistent with whatever our application is.
Okay.
So,
And I didn't necessarily need the exact nuts and bolts, but it was just more or
And
less
it-
making sure you guys were willing to, assuming that the contracts or the funding mechanisms that you guys are utilizing or proposing don't have those types of restrictions, would you be willing to offer up those types of restrictions in a deed or otherwise to make sure that we knew that that was going to serve the purpose that we wanted to serve?
Yeah.
So that was the first question I think you guys have answered in the affirmative. And so that helps me with that thing. The other thing too, the public amenities, I did, I know you guys have kind of structured this project to be kind of all about the elderly housing. So you have the building itself, which is a beautiful building. I like the aesthetics of it. I think it looks really good. But then you kind of are making the park and others to kind of complement the housing, which I think is a good thing. But at the same time, and I'm kind of torn in this one, is it better to have the other elements of the project to be geared toward the community itself? And so that was one thing I think that the Homestead Housing Authority proposal had, was their park was more geared toward the community, making it was something that the community would come to and utilize that was maybe separate and apart. Because their structure, the way they had it, was more security oriented. So you had the structure was kind of a standalone elderly facility, and then you had the park and you had the retail, which was kind of outside of that security zone, and that was more or less for open-ended for the entire public, for the community as a whole. And I kind of like that concept because it provided that impetus and that new, something that the entire community could take advantage of versus just being for one select group of residents. So I don't know exactly where I stand, but I wanted to put that out for discussion with my colleagues, but also for consideration for you as you're thinking about what the final product looks like. That was something that I did want to have some discussion about. The retail square footage as well. I don't know, I can't remember how the other projects were. I know at one time we had a huge retail concept. I think we all decided that we'd prefer to have multiple tenants to go into these retail units. I don't know if 6,000 square feet is enough to accomplish that goal, again, based on this idea that I have that it would provide some sort of amenities for the community as a whole. So is 6,000 sufficient, or does it need to be, maybe a little bit more? So I think that's something, again, for consideration or discussion as we go. And then the timeframes for the funding. I know Vice Mayor had asked you some questions about the funding. What do you think that timeframe is as far as from, if we said go tomorrow and approved it, how long do you think the process would take to get funding, and what do you feel the likelihood of success on getting that funding going forward?
I would give us at least two funding cycles through the state of Florida and two through the county.
And how long is the funding cycle? Is that 6 months, a year?
Every year.
A year.
We
So-
just missed out on one. We just won an award, but we put in the application, I think it was in November of 2019, and they came out with the scores in December. And January, they took it to the board, so it was awarded. So we have to wait till the next one. Every year, it's up to the state to put out the RFPs, and they could be usually they're all within about the same time, within a month or two. So it could be November, could be December, could be January.
All right, so then we have a year wait time just for the cycle to start, and then 2 cycles after that. So we're
Now,
looking maybe 3 years.
Now, the county comes out with a surtax cycle in a couple months.
Okay.
We could put in the application on that. We're not going to be completely ready to give a big cheerleader yell, but you'll get in the pipeline, and then if a deal falls through, or maybe we might even win. I don't know, but we could try. By the following year, we'll be really prepared because we'll have our site plan approval. Remember, we have to come into you all to get a site plan approval, and that takes time with staff and zoning. You have a very, I would say, a zoning department that represents the city very, very good. And that takes time. Then we have to go back, and this is a city, you have to get approval through the commission, so it takes time. And then we have to get a full set of architectural plans done to take to the county because they really want to see shovel-ready projects ready to go. We've had a lot of success with the county. Can't guarantee anything, but that's what we know. So
Okay.
that's what we'd like to do, either way, the county or the state.
Okay.
And then I'd just like to address the retail parcel and benefiting the community. What we put there, we feel is benefiting the community, and we want to benefit the community. This is not just about 55 years and older. We made a presentation, we hear what you want, and that's fine with us. We're just saying that the park, of course, come play in the park. If we have a coffee shop, everyone please come. If it's an urgent care, everyone come to the urgent care. It's not restricted just to that facility or our community. It's there to benefit everyone in the community.
All right, thank you. And then I think, generally speaking, I mean, I'm comfortable with, you know, directing staff. I mean, I'm okay with if staff goes forward with, works with you guys to negotiate to see what a final product might look like, what final terms might look like. So I'm comfortable with moving it forward. Just wanted to have some of my discussion items, you know, in the thought process for the rest of my colleagues, but also for staff and for you guys as you're moving down the pipeline. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe? Okay. Sure. Let me, You're on. You're
Am I
on.
live? Okay. I wanted to thank you guys for taking the time to meet with me. I think that the project is beautiful on the aesthetics. I did read the last meeting that you came in front of us, November 2018. I was a little disappointed to not see more focus on what the retail type of tenants were going to be, but I was pleased to see that initially it was about a 2,000 square foot out parcel, and now it's 6,000. So I do think that in reviewing all the points that my colleagues expressed, that you did try to meet some of those. I would love to see more specifics on who it is you'd want to bring in and what tenants are going to be interested in moving into that type of facility. I did have the similar questions with regards to the funding, because in reading the minutes, it was kind of all over the place. There was even a comment where it said, and I'll find it, where it said the sale funding would not be available for this project because of the amount of units. It was under the amount of units for the southwest section. So is that not
The sale funding would not be available because of the amount of units. I've never heard that before.
That changes every year. I mean, this last cycle, I don't know.
I can
They
read,
just
I
had-
found it, says sale loan required any development south of what he believed was 248th Street or the Cutler Ridge area had to be over 111 units. So the Lucy Landings would not qualify for the sale
Well,
loan.
that's that year, and then there's every year it changes.
So it does change, so
Yeah,
it's still
so-
on the table? Okay.
And a lot of it too is you have to go up and meet with staff. And I'd highly encourage to have maybe the CRA come up with us, and when we go up and we talk to staff about our project too, maybe take a trip to Tallahassee too, and you know, or get a letter of interest. In the city of Boynton Beach, we had a lot of success. And one reason we did it is the city took an active role in writing letters of support and because in wanting to see a process like this happen within their city. And I think that's kind of what the state looks for, instead of going into a city that wants to fight them. They'd rather go into a city that wants to help them. And they'll work with you with the application cycle on that.
So
I
as of
can't always
today-
say that's the case, but most of my experiences have shown that.
Okay, so I think the plan, just to clarify for me, we're either going to do sale and surtax, or one or the other, or both?
We'll do one or the other. We
Okay.
don't need to do both.
Okay, and then there was a suggestion by Councilman Roth, due to the extensive history of this particular property, that we should maybe commemorate it with a monument, and I didn't see that come back in conversation or in the plan. So just keep that in mind. Maybe there is a lot of history there on these properties, and I think it was a great comment to consider.
It would be beautiful. We'd love to put a monument. Again, this is your city. This is about your community.
Yeah.
And we really just want to give you what you want. And we're happy to meet again with everyone as a whole, independently, and really meet your needs. That's all this is about for us. I mean, of course, we enjoy what we do, and we take pride in what we do, and we feel good about coming into Homestead and being able to really revitalize and jumpstart this community in any way we can. So let us know what you want.
I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you for being receptive to the feedback that my colleagues and I are providing to you. Councilwoman Bailey had mentioned earlier about a clubhouse. Will there be a clubhouse here?
Yes, there's a clubhouse within the community. So what we had gone to at La Jolla Estates would pretty much be exactly what you would see. I mean, maybe a different layout, but it
Right.
would have a gym, it would have a kitchen, could even be bigger. So
Okay, I think that is a great amenity as it relates to opening up the community and the amenities to the surrounding community. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of that. I kind of want some exclusivity for a 55 and older active community, like what you see in the villages. There is some exclusivity to living there, and I think I'm leaning more towards that and looking at all of the amenities that they provide in their clubhouse, arts and crafts, painting, things of that sort. So I'm not completely against it, but I think I like the exclusivity.
well, I think inside the clubhouse, within the four walls of the community and the 83 units, that would pretty much be exclusive to the community. So if they want to have arts and crafts, or they want to have committees where they want to kind of be like social directors among themselves, and we provide services as well, but that would be exclusive for the most part to the four walls of the community. The out parcel, the park, would we want to stop people from playing in the park or walking their dog? That would be up to you all. And then as far as the coffee shop or urgent care or pharmacy and being able to benefit the community and have them come in and park their cars and pick up their medicine, well,
For that retail space, I know historically, when applicants come before us, we want to know what's coming, but history tells us that you can't really tell us that until it's developed. But as long as you get a sense of what we would like there, and if this is approved and developed, then you know who to target and go after to be able to come into those retail spaces.
well, we'll actively target whatever you feel is what's best for your community. And we'll go out there and we'll put our best foot forward and try to get exactly what it is that you're looking for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Um, I have a few questions. Some are for staff and some are for the applicant. To CRA, how old is the appraisal?
It was completed in 2018. I believe it was August in 2018.
Well, the reason I ask, and I had this conversation with the representatives yesterday, just yesterday. And I had done some homework and talked to others who are involved in development along the busway. And I'll say up front, I get that this is not a comparison of apples and oranges when you talk about this location versus the busway. But land values seem to be, for these types of projects, determined in some measure by, as I think they say in the industry, the number of doors. And the value of the property at something significantly less than what's being paid along the busway is still far more than your 2018 appraised value. And I'm sensing that perhaps the representatives had some of the same discussions with some of my colleagues that they had with me, that the price to be paid for the property is dependent upon the timeframes within which, the timeframes that we establish for obtaining funding or starting to come out of the ground. So I just wanted to, to put that out there. As an aside, I think, as a second crack at the the project. This is a fantastic rendering. The architecture is wonderful. The vision, the cooperation is something unusual that we see from applicants. And I think our direction tonight is going to be to establish some pretty wide parameters for the city to go and negotiate a deal. And we're going to have time to address those concerns of exclusivity and security at the site planning, or I guess, really informal site planning process. But I wanted to ask the manager, um, I was here when this property was acquired by the city. And I seem to recall that perhaps there was a borrowing from the general fund, uh, a loan to the CRA to do this acquisition. Is there a loan on the books when this is sold? Um, Is it accurate to say that the proceeds can't stay in the CRA, that they've got to be returned to the general fund? Do we know?
I don't know, Mayor. I know that historically there was a transaction between the city and the CRA, but we can certainly get back to you with that information.
I think that's probably pretty important
I would think so.
in ultimately going to the contract and knowing what we have to deal with going forward and whether or not there would be a shortfall in that. And again, for staff who wasn't here, we're talking about something that transpired in 2006, ancient history to most of us up here. Also, to the planning department, um, does this density more or less, is it 20? Is this number of 83 units comparable to the number of units that was removed? And is it in compliance with whatever the overlay is now, or are we going to require some variances to go forward at this number of units?
It's just short by 3 units, so it's very close to the allowable density, which is 20 units an acre.
Okay.
So it's right there.
Yeah, because when I took their numbers and the number of units, it came out to, 19 point something and change units. So the overlay is at 20 here.
Yeah, right now, the allowable density is 20 units an acre, and this is what, 4 point something, something, something,
4.6, 4.16.
4.16. Let me see.
4.1 into 80 plus is almost 20,
Right, it's very close.
right?
So if there's any variances, it would be minimal.
And do we know, how does this compare to the number of shotgun units that were removed? Do we know?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'll have to go
Okay.
back and look that up.
All right. James, did you have something to interject?
Yeah, just to add to what Mr. Cordino stipulated, so we base density, we changed it off of gross to net now. So what that calculation would yield, I mean, it's still going to be a few units over what's allowed for the planned urban neighborhood, specifically the southwest planned urban neighborhood. So we, in order to realize this development at 83 units, there will need to be changes to both the comp plan, to the master plan, and to the density development regulations that we currently have in the code. And those could be targeted. We could carve out some exception for senior housing. I mean, we can get there, but those are 3 things that will definitely need to be done prior to even getting to site plan or plat approval or any of that.
Okay, all right. Now, and in that route, in your handout from yesterday and as well as the slides today, I noticed there seems to be a little carve out for that little wasn't supposed to be an out parcel on the southeast corner. Is that under our ownership? Was it supposed to be under our ownership? Was it still tied up in that bankruptcy, subject to a lease? What's the story there?
Are you referring to the little store, the little corner
Yes.
store? That's not ours. It is privately owned. It was purchased by the current owners through the bankruptcy.
Does anybody, I thought we had an option to pick that up at one point in time. And didn't we go to bankruptcy court and try to have what seemed to be a fraudulent lease or purchase agreement set aside? So,
Yes, and we attempted to purchase that and did go to the courts. It did not work in our favor. At that time, the owners were tenants, They had first right of refusal. They put in a proposal, made a bid on the property, and essentially the courts ruled in their favor, and they were the ones who were able to purchase the property. So
Do we know what that price was?
it was, I believe it was at 100,000. I think it was right at 100,000.
In the dark corners of my mind, I was thinking that when this deal was done, we had the option to purchase that corner for $50,000. And I don't know over time what happened to that, but we've got a real, and I'll say it, derelict corner at the edge of what's supposed to be our anchor for Southwest revitalization. And
Yes, sir.
maybe we'll have that discussion with code enforcement in the future and commercial paint standards, because for me, that is an unacceptable speck of blight. And look, we all know I was here and I fought against the deal that bought this property, and this to me is just a remaining thorn in all of our sides, that is not ours, number one, and two, allowed to exist. But I just wanted to see what that status was. I was under the impression we had a better outcome in bankruptcy court. Back to the planner, or perhaps the attorneys. Do we have, assuming this goes forward, do we have the ability to waive significant permit, inspection, impact fees? And I would assume that as these variances and comp plan changes are necessary, that would be on us, not on the developer?
If that's what you all want to do and take it on as an application for the city, yes, it could be on the city's cost, not the developers. And
But-
we would have to look at, I don't believe we can waive the permit fees. I don't even think we do that for city buildings, do we? No, we don't do that for city buildings, but again, is that something that's a
Under
conflict?
state law, we can't.
We have no ability to,
No, but we can take on all the applications for the planning side on behalf of the city.
okay, so that's pretty significant then, and it's interesting that it's our property and we don't have the, what happened to home rule? Okay. Before I turn off your microphones, let me see if there are anything else I need to address to staff over here to my right. To the applicant, do we have, and I understand fair housing laws and so forth, do we have the ability going forward, and I guess something I would be looking for in the contract, clearly it needs to be designated as elderly housing for as far into the future as is possible. Do we have at least initially the opportunity to limit the initial, what leeway do we have it to limit this project to occupancy by people who were residents of Homestead, and maybe even take it down to the southwest area? Look, this is a city asset. We've got a lot of money in this piece of dirt, and to the extent that we can do it, I want to return it for the benefit of those who are here now, not those who come here to avail themselves of this project.
With our Fair Housing Council and all, to make sure that we're not in violation of fair housing rules by doing this. But if we can, one way we've heard other people, and we think it's a really good idea too, is to add, have a screening. There's usually more of a demand for housing than there's the supply. So it's quite a larger demand than supply. So what we could do is have a scoring a scoring schedule to see who scores a certain amount of points to get in, and give the city of Homestead residents like an extra 10 or 20 points.
Okay.
And by doing that, we can meet that goal if we meet fair housing requirements to do it.
Okay. Or, yeah, it's just, a concern that I have, that I understand sometimes we just can't get there from here, but if we can find a path from here to there, let's look for that path. I think those are all the questions I had, and to echo Board Member Shelley's concerns, I think what staff's looking for tonight is conceptual approval to move forward to negotiate a general agreement for the sale of the property and the eventual construction of up to 83 units with some commercial retail component programmed in, and not necessarily locked into the site plan. I'd love to be locked into significantly this architecture and the structure, and I certainly ironclad for elderly. So, as long as staff, that's the understanding I like staff to have and the applicant to have as we go forward. So would anyone like to make that motion, Vice Mayor? Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
was deferring to Bailey, if you want to make the motion. Second.
All right. So everybody understands that what's being moved by Board Member Bailey and seconded by the Vice Mayor for forward progress for the first time in nearly 14 years on this parcel, and we look forward to it. And, I know that you've been very generous with your time, meeting with all of us. This is something that will, I think, be like no other and really send a strong message, not only to the people of the Southwest who deserve this caliber of project, but the entire community. So, do we have something from finance? I'm sorry, I just saw you flashing over there.
Sir. Sorry.
No? Okay.
I just had a quick question before you vote, Mayor. For the applicant, you had mentioned that the Surtax, the county cycle is in a couple of months, and that you could get it in, and it would be in the pike, so to speak, but you would not be able to actually apply for those fees until you were shovel-ready with 100% construction
We
plans?
would put in an application no matter what. It's harder to score unless you're pretty shovel-ready. They encourage
Okay.
that. But I'd get in the pipeline
Okay.
and push really hard to try to get our deal done.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right. So is there any further discussion from the CRA board? I'll open it up to public comment very quickly. Is anyone from the public who would like to speak on this matter? None appearing, we'll close the public hearing. Vice Mayor.
Yes, I just had one final suggestion. I had mentioned to you yesterday that I wasn't a fan of that Lucy Landing's name.
Me either.
Not at all. So I wanted to recommend with Councilwoman Bailey, if you want to take the lead with Southwest Advisory Committee and help facilitate that process with the naming of this
Okay.
potential site.
My head is spinning. I want it.
Okay, I wanted to
Thank
just
you,
recommend
appreciate that.
We heard what you said. Name to be determined.
TBD part? Okay.
And I just want to say thank you all so much for having the faith in us to be able to really make a difference in your community. It means a lot to us, and we really believe in what we do, and we feel that we can really make a difference here as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being here tonight. So, Madam Clerk, if we'll have a roll call vote on the motion?
Board Member Bailey?
Absolutely.
Board Member Avila? Board Member Roth?
Yes.
Board Member Shelley? Vice Chairwoman Fairclough Staggers? Chairman Lossner?
Never thought I'd see the day, yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. It's a big first step. Okay. Next item is tab 3, car number 2862, the Flagler Lot Project presentation. And is that you, Madam Manager, or is this CRA? CRA once again, okay.
Yes, sir.
Earning your keep tonight. That's why they call it a CRA meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On November 11, 2019, staff published a public notice pursuant to the Section 163.3803A Florida statutes that the City of Homestead Community Redevelopment Agency intended to dispose of its interest in the real property located on Flagler Avenue and Maury Drive along the busway. Interested parties had 30 days to submit their concept for residential development on the land, which is commonly referred to as the Flagler Lot. At the conclusion of the notice period, the CRA received responses from two developers, Banyan LLC and Garcia Abella LLC. Banyan LLC was invited to present its concept to city staff and subsequently to the CRA board. Banyan LLC is here tonight to present its concept for residential housing on the Flagler lot, and staff is seeking direction from the CRA board.
So I'm assuming we have a presentation now from.
Yes, sir, we have
On
another
behalf of the Banyan
presentation.
Group. So please come forward and begin. Welcome.
Board members. So thank you for allowing us to present. Give you a little, I would like to talk a little bit about, the proposed project, and we also have John Zerti, who is our architect, that will also talk a little bit about the design. Give you a little background myself. I'm from Chicago originally, been in Florida for 20 years and involved in development since the early 80s, and currently have worked with CRAs in a number of cities in South Florida. Our headquarters is in Delray Beach. Was exposed to Homestead for the first time, and really saw that downtown core is a tremendous potential to develop into a lifestyle city that really attracts a variety of demographics. And we think, we have I personally have a lot of interest in the future of Homestead, the downtown Homestead area, and I think we hopefully have designed something that would be a real asset to the downtown to bring, in addition to the Homestead Station, and create a statement for the downtown area. We were first introduced to this lot, which had its challenges in the shape and the size. Location was wonderful, and really, as far as bringing a downtown demographic that we were trying to attract, we thought that the location was perfect, and the challenge was fitting in a site a project that would be viable and would be attractive and would be desirable by the demographic that we're trying to attract, which is really young professionals, millennials, and empty nesters, typical to downtown submarket cores that are really building up, especially lifestyle markets. So initially, this is a design that that we've spent a lot of time working on and trying to tweak to really bring a feel and a statement to the downtown that honors the downtown district, the entrance to the downtown, and the Homestead Station. It's a little bit of an urban style. We're trying to, again, attract to a certain demographic, and we've been able to design a 40-unit building. It's 10 units per floor, has first floor parking, an amenity deck on the second floor, which is to the north of the property, and the entrance, the main entrance to the property, which would face downtown and Chrome, as well as Homestead Station, is the way we designed it. We tried to soften it up, along with bringing an urban feel on the outside with some features that bring a wood look to the. It's a synthetic wood, but it made to last in Florida, but it also has a really soft feel to it, and a lot of lighting. Inside the units, we designed tutus. They're flexible tutus, so the way we look at it, the market that we're trying to attract is either singles, young professionals, young couples. We designed a unit that could be a two-two, or it could be a one-two with an office, so it's a little bit flexible, open style. I won't go into this. So the unit design, I'll let John Zerti go into a little bit and how we designed the building. And we did design this and spent a lot of time designing it from the structure up, from the ground up. Placement of structurals of the the structural columns so that we don't impede into the apartments and we don't have to do any transfer of structural support. So we're trying to keep this as economic as possible so that we can get it done. John will
Good evening, or late afternoon. Thank you. My name is John Zerdy. I'm an architect, and I've also been an architect since 1979. Our first offices were in Fort Lauderdale and downtown. I grew up actually in Fort Lauderdale, so I'm used to South Florida type of lifestyle and watched things changed in a number of cities that went through downtown changes and transitions over the years. And the other cities we are working, obviously, is in Delray Beach as well. I also do work in Lake Worth, where our offices are now. I actually was a commissioner there for a few years in Lake Worth, so I understand what your responsibilities are to make sure that we accomplish what we're saying we're going to do. And on that note, this particular site, as far as we were concerned looking at this, is extremely narrow. We've had some time to talk about this one-on-one. The narrowest portion of the property is 50 feet wide. So that's extremely narrow for a parcel. However, what allows us to work with this is the fact that there are no adjacent property abutting this except for roadways, busway, et cetera. The length of it, you can see from this layout of the existing conditions, the parking is accessed just on Flagler, so the curb cuts come in, and you need to be able to circulate and maneuver your cars where you couldn't even park cars on the Flagler side there, maybe just a little bit parallel. There's a few spaces, so it is very narrow. You need 60 feet minimum just to drive in and park two ways. So we only could come in this. So this kind of gave us a little bit of a blueprint in a sense of what really could work, because parking and maneuvering the cars to get people here was a primary one. So let me see if I can find that. Steve, do you have the, oh, here it is. Here we go. So working off of that, and I have a good background in structural engineering as well, and it's important that we don't give you a picture of something that really looks nice and then we really can't make it work. So in this instance here, the parking is similar to what exists there, along with the fact that on this, let me see here, on this part over here, we have the main parking, and on each end, we're going to anchor the end of the building with a separate little lobby spaces, the elevators on each end to make it convenient, and there's stairs on each end, and it's a double-loaded structure, meaning the apartments are on both sides, and it'll be 5 units on each side, 10 units per floor, 4 floors above the ground level. And so that makes it convenient for anybody in the building. They can come up most likely either here if they're parking, and best of all, what we would say is the point location, which is where the rendering is taken from this view, looking down, is that you're close to Chrome here and coming across to Homestead Station, which would be one of the most attractive components of the location for the project. The other side of this area here is, does that show up on your screen too? The pointer? Oh, great. Fantastic. And so this is also covered parking here, which the pool amenities deck is above this zone, not the building stops at this point. So for reference, this is that same little site plan here where you come in and there's recycling area here, some little bit of loading area, some visitor space as well. And the units are 5 per floor, common hallway, and very efficient, as well as a little larger view to show you that they are 2-bedroom units, as Steve was mentioning. 2 bedrooms flanking the main living open space, kind of a soft loft he's mentioned before. So it's got a little extra high ceiling. It's not 8 foot. It's not. We're looking at 10-foot ceilings in here. We've already been talking with contractors about how efficient to construct this. And like I said, we were very concerned about how to really make this fit and work on the site. This is a little closer view, again, of the floor plans. And what we have here is part of the ground floor level superimposed just underneath one of the more typical floor plans. So to continue on with how we worked out the efficiency on this, is these column layouts here allow this unit, so it doesn't conflict with the bedrooms and all this. Actually, in the rendering, we have a lot of glass that faces over these balconies, and the balconies themselves are juxtaposed. They're not exactly lined up one over the other. There's some movement into the composition that gives the building some interest. So we were looking at that to try to give a little more composition, and using wood. In fact, the colors kind of in this chamber here is similar to that, where the wood material finish is a composite material we've used. It's good in the exterior because wood outside hasn't been very good, in my experience. It's all higher maintenance, and we want to make sure this is efficient. So on this side here is a clear 24-foot, so you can maneuver, and the spacing between these columns is 21 foot on center. Now that's a number because your typical parking space is 9 feet wide. So if the column is 12 inches wide, you have 20 foot clear, giving each car 10 feet, a little more space. We've all been in parking garages that we're, my mirror's going to hit, or you have to be really, really careful. So to allow that to work, we need to have that extra width anyway to make our units, which are about 42 feet by almost 21, about just shy of 900 square feet, to work together so that we don't have to have some structural maneuverings to accomplish this, which a lot of times a residential use over top of a parking use kind of requires some of that. So I'm also a general contractor since 1977. I wouldn't be the one on this project, but that background with the other gives me the ability to help Steve say, could we really work on this property? It's a pretty challenging piece of property. And so that's kind of how we have come up with this flexible situation where the balconies actually, at least on each one, you'll have one that the main living room comes off in. One of the bedrooms will also come. So they kind of move back and forth depending on how the composition was laid out on the elevations. And this shows that there is really sort of a master bedroom where it has its own access to a bathroom, full bathroom, and walk-in closet, where the other one has a full walk-in closet, but its bathroom is also joined with general access from the main living room area here. Again, a little bit better of an idea of how the units lay out, 10 per floor. And sort of just a feel for it. This is not an interior rendering quite yet, but it gives you the feel of a little higher ceiling than a normal ceiling with plenty of natural light. The units are, like I said, 21 feet deep, so natural light will come into the unit very nicely. It's not like you have a 30 or 40 foot deep unit, where a lot of times against the corridor there's the so-called a little office area or whatever that gets turned into something. But this gives you a good feel that we really worked hard on how we can structure this project over the lot. It does get a little wider as it goes towards the north, so we're able to make the deck a little bit bigger and fan out and get a little more parking circulation and compliance. So if this is going to be satisfactory for you all as a project in this location, we would be asking for some setback relief, and we've talked to staff some already about some of that. The balconies do overhang the property line a little bit towards the southern end some, but in a lot of cities and urban projects, as long as you're at least over 12 feet clearance above there, plenty of things are over sidewalks as well. The best thing about, I can say, on the sidewalk setback relief is there aren't any other buildings that would be right up against this. Most of the time, setbacks from buildings are to let light in, to have some view, to have some air, and for fire safety. So we've also taken into consideration where the stairs are and life safety issues already up front. So we've done our homework. I think we tried very hard to give you all something that was inspired in terms of the efforts you've already made with the Homestead Station. And we'd like to see this as a complementary piece to set that off. Hopefully, there's some other opportunities for Banyan as well, as Steve was mentioning. And you see on our area to the south, part of that deck covers some parking, and we would have a shallow kind of a recreational pool and a little green space up there, again, above the ground, so we wouldn't have any other access for safety reasons as well. I think, Steve, if you wanted to wrap some other up, I'll still be here if you have some questions about that part. Thank you.
So, yeah, so we did design a unit that we think is attractive to our target demographic, and is a nice, attraction to the downtown to bring some availability of density. We did go, when we did our comp analysis, our rental analysis, it was a little difficult because there isn't really many comps in the downtown area. I've been personally involved in a few cities that have grown their downtown cores. I also am not a fee developer. I'm an investor. I have been, since the early 80s, and I personally own and operate all of my properties. I manage the properties. We're also an investor in the properties. And I manage residential, I have retail, I have office, I have hotel, and I have industrial. I think, my experience, especially most of it has been in retail leasing and building. The Homestead Station is a tremendous, I think a tremendous foresight by the city to build and to take the risk on a 30,000 square foot retail site. I think it's going to pay off in exponentially for the city, because it has exactly what retailers need, is parking and clustering together, which is very important. Those retail sites are going to be, they're perfectly designed for today's retailers that come into the market. I also know from experience that the first generation of retail is very difficult to lease in the beginning. First tenants, nobody wants to be the first, but once they come in, they start becoming a domino factor. Some level of density near them, and when I say density, I don't mean it in a derogatory term, but there has to be support from outside customers. There has to be support from people who live especially in a walking lifestyle downtown area. So support from people who live in the downtown area have to also be part of it, and bringing people from the communities surrounding the downtown areas is actually very important. So I think, as far as we're concerned, and bringing some residential to the immediate area, and really this is close enough to almost create a mixed use feel within the downtown area. I think that'll be a great complement to each other. It'll help us leasing up this type of space, because we're looking for people who want to move into the downtown area for lifestyle. And part of that lifestyle means that they can walk to retail, they can walk to restaurants, they can walk to the entertainment. That's what I see happening, and we're very excited to be a part of it. I'm personally very excited to invest in the downtown area, and hopefully in other aspects of the downtown area. Having the college nearby is also a great asset, both we feel to us and also to the retail. And when I say retail, it's not just Homestead Station, it's the beautiful downtown walking street that Homestead has, and potential restaurants and cafes, which is very attractive to lifestyle downtown cores. I can go a little bit over the pro forma and how we envision this. We have approximately a little over $600,000 budget for beginning to pre-development costs, which is really getting the architectural done, getting the engineering, getting through the entitlement process. Once we have a finished product that that we can go to construction drawings and permits, that's when we'll bring in either construction finance. It happens to be in an opportunity zone, and we do have an opportunity zone fund that we may use for all or part of financing to bring in construction financing. The entire project is about a $12 million project. I don't, unfortunately, I can give somebody one of the performance. Oh, you have packets, okay, great. We have about a $7.5 million construction budget currently as it sits. So, we're looking at this project. It's not only a tough site, it's also a little challenging in the economics. We're going to hopefully build this to a 7% return on costs, which is at the lower end of where is really adequate, adequate for financing. But we love this project. We love this downtown, and I personally think that there's a tremendous marriage, hopefully, between the downtown core and bringing some residential density to the downtown, the people to come to the lifestyles of downtown Homestead. I don't know if I can open it for questions.
Board members? Who'd like to start? You're on.
I wanted to say, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity to see the Zoom presentation that you offered. I do have experience with building on these small slits of land on Flagler, so I understand the challenge that you're up against, and I appreciate your commitment to provide this product. I think it's an exceptional design, and in comparison to the one that I'm familiar with, they weren't as smart at building up and putting the parking underneath. So you're putting 40 parking spaces, correct?
Correct, 40.
I think that's one per unit, so you're not overdoing the parking, but I think it's a great design, and I commend your architect on that, so thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, what's the timeline for the construction from beginning to end?
Well, from permitting, construction would be about 14 months.
14 months, okay.
So, and, we would like to go to site plan application in the next 3 months, and the process, of course, from site plan application through permitting will be partially working with the city, and we've worked, we're happy to work with the building department, and we're very hands-on. John and I have worked together for many years, and we would personally be very hands-on in the project with the building department.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yes. What is the value of this property?
Oh, I'm sorry.
In August 2018, we had it appraised, and it came back at $405,000.
And how much are you proposing to pay for this site?
We're proposing it just a nominal amount. We really don't have room in the budget.
Sorry?
Basically, a nominal amount.
What does that mean?
Which is just enough to be a legal transaction. We're looking at this as a zero cost of land to try to meet our budget and make this to make it viable. Yet it's very, for us, we're building vertical, so vertical is more expensive. I have very little land and I also have to build a garage in a vertical site with only 40 units. It's very challenging economically.
I understand that. It's very ambitious of you, but I think it's very important for us to have a clear understanding of what you're proposing to pay for this land, and a nominal amount is very, very vague.
Well, I mean, it's a dollar. It's basically a transactional amount. What we do bring, and I think we will bring, is number one, we'll bring a tax base. Number two, we'll bring an economic impact to the downtown, because bringing residents living in the downtown, plus especially next to the tramps, to the station, which I think
Right, I
is,
completely agree, and I don't refute any of that. I love the design of the project, but I'm more interested in how much you're willing to pay for it. In absence of that, I can't support it if I don't know the numbers. Okay.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Further from board members at this time? I'll jump in with some questions, not only for the applicant, but for staff. I think rough calculations are that this is the equivalent, if it went forward, an equivalent approval to 44 units per acre. Is that more or less correct?
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
And the approved density for this site at this time is what?
15 units an acre.
15. So we've got a proposal for in excess of 40, and our stated density is 15. Now, that's an important issue because I want to go back over here to the appraisal. I'm assuming the appraisal was done and calculated in part based upon that lower density amount. Or do you know?
Yes.
Okay. So we've got an appraisal, let's say around numbers of $450,000 at less than half the number of units that is proposed, yet we have a proposer who is essentially asking us to give them this property in order to do the project. Is that pretty much sum it up? Okay, that's what it sounds like. So let's let that sink in a minute. Your presentation was that some of your written materials, I didn't hear it here tonight, was that this would be market rate, that this would not
Market
be
rate.
financed and built as affordable housing.
no, it's a market rate. Our estimated rental rates are between $1.50 to $1.75 a foot.
Okay, all right. And not that it's necessarily relevant to my final consideration, but looking at your pro forma, it appears that the cost per unit is in excess of $191,000, which is about $217 a square foot.
Correct.
Is that, to me, that seems to be a little high, and he's gone, and I wouldn't want to put Mr. Sweezy on the spot, but I'm pretty confident he builds more cheaply than that. Can we reconcile that differential?
Yeah, no, I get it. Two-story walk-up would be certainly considerably cheaper. It's, first of all, to build a garage itself within the structure is costly. To build vertically and to build units that have a lot of glazing, a lot of glass, I want to build a product that I feel that we can get up to $1.75 a foot market rate and attract people. So we've vetted this with two construction companies that are, one is Butters Construction and one is Kaufman Lynn Construction. I'm pretty confident that for this structure, we're pretty much on with our cost per foot for a finished product. I would love to build it cheaper, but
Well,
and
you know,
of course we'll value engineer whatever we can.
Kind of
but-
an aside, I'm more interested in the nuts and, what your profits and your expenses are,
I mean, this-
are your business.
And this does include all the site work, all the pre-development work, so.
But one of the projects you point to in your past is Delray Beach. And it doesn't take long to go online and find out that it appears there's been a lot of litigation in Delray Beach, and that perhaps you assigned your rights to that project to a third party who did not perform.
We did sell the project.
We did sell the
Yeah, we
project.
sold the project, and unfortunately, it was due to a conflict between our partner and I. And I'm the one who personally brought in all of our equity partners with us. I brought in about $75 million of equity partners in the last 5 years. Our particular partner was only interested in selling. We were interested in, we're a long-term investor. I have every property that I have personally, and I do have, I have my entity, my development entity since 1982, which is JMS Development, that I have with my brother. I have properties in Florida and Illinois and in Delray Beach. But every asset that we've bought, which is over 20 years in South Florida, we still own. And we operate and we manage. That particular project, we wanted to build it and develop it, but due to an issue with our partner, who was the majority partner, we were forced to sell it. We did try to stop the sale, and that was part of the litigation. We've moved on. I personally did all the entitlement work and did all the rezoning. John was also the project manager on the project. I think we did a phenomenal job taking 7 acres of historic property in downtown Delray that was otherwise pretty much abandoned homes and create a really vibrant project. And as much as we sold it and made money on the project, that was not my long-term objective. But as you can probably read, we were not in favor of selling it. We now are doing a project directly across the street, which is a 50,000-foot retail and office project with a partnership with the CRA on a parking RFP. And that one we will build and own and operate ourselves, and it's part of an opportunity zone. Which is also is also an opportunity zone, which also does force an investor, if you do use the tax credit, to hold it for at least 10 years. But that's not what forces us to hold it. But yes, you're right.
Okay, well,
long story.
Understand, you saw the prior presentation,
Yep.
and I won't shy away from, using the word scam as to how the city came to own that property. And we're just 14 years later moving out of that hole. I'm not really ready to dig another hole of delay. So in that regard, and this is something that if I were to be convinced to go forward with authorizing staff to negotiate with you, 2 huge points in the deal for me would have to be that it is non-assignable, that as much ironclad as we can be, that it's not affordable would have to be programmed in, and there would be significant timeframes for performance built into that. Understanding that there are in-house variances, certainly if this went forward at this density, a huge density issue, which would have to be dealt with. So I think that, the two big ones up front for me are the non-assignable and market rate housing. Would that be something that this group would be willing to go forward with those kinds of parameters?
100%. Absolutely. Understand.
Let me just check my notes here. So under your proposal, we would have to convey the property to you in order for you to go get financing. And somewhere in your pro forma, you talked about the equity at somewhere around $3 million. Is that in hand now, or would that be prospective? And if it's prospectively, we would need to see that in hand in a restricted account within a certain period of time.
That would be fine. And I think we did, with the city attorney, we spoke a little bit about how we time the conveyance, and maybe it's, it would be maybe just before commencement of construction, so that there wouldn't be an issue that it gets conveyed and doesn't get built. So I'm perfectly happy to work out those details with the city.
All right. I think that's all I have at this point. Any further comments from my fellow board members? You have something? Mr. Roth?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I kind of have the same concerns as the vice chair does as far as a price to purchase the property. I think you basically said you just wanted to make it a legal transaction, $1, $10, whatever. I don't know that that's in the best interest of the city. Um, Do you have any estimations on the tax revenue once your building is put on that property uh, that would entice us to consider doing that? But you don't have that now. Right. But your valuation is,
I don't know how that happened.
Commercials.
and what would you estimate the rental income to be
I estimated net income to be about 500,000
per year?
for the whole project, before debt.
Well, you have an idea of what each unit will rent for, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm using on a pro forma $1.65 per foot as a rental comp. Um, we ramp up to between 440 to 500,000 over 5 years. Is that NOI? And that's using, I have a lot of experience running, I currently manage a lot of apartments that I own in South Florida. We use a rental expense on a new product based on our historical numbers. It's based on 90% occupancy, which is currently the occupancy of the South Florida market. So we're really building this to a return on costs of 7%. I would say typically a residential institutional project would be an 8% return on cost. 7% is still something that's financeable. Below 7% gets a little tougher. So it's at the, I would say between 7 and 9% is your return on cost range. So this is at the bottom end of the return on cost. But as a long-term asset, which I look at it as a great long-term asset, and we'll manage this ourselves, and we think the downtown market the rental rates will climb over the next 10 years. I believe it'll be up to about $2 a foot, which is more comparable with the South Florida market, and it'll be commensurate with retail rents in the downtown district, and it will build a residential base for other projects, whether it's us doing other projects or other developers coming in doing downtown residential projects. So I understand the hesitation of not charging for the land, and the appraised value is a great estimate. The problem is it's really in the size and shape of the land. As it's a very difficult piece to develop anything. Retail would be difficult. Office would be impossible. Residential is challenging, but it's doable. But I just can't find any room in there. It's not that we want to. We're looking to buy. We don't care what the land value. If the land value costs us $2 million, it would be irrelevant if the return on cost on the project can make sense. But I just can't make it work. And I'm not asking for concessions in other areas such as taxes or, things that typically this is I would call it a first project of this sort in the downtown area. So we are taking a financial risk, and we're investing financially before we own the land. I mean, we'll have over $650,000 invested in this project before we even own the land. So I look at that as it's a risk factor that's an investment, and it's an investment in downtown Homestead and also in the project, and we believe in it. But yeah.
Okay, didn't answer my question, though.
Huh?
Didn't answer my question.
I'm sorry?
That was a very long explanation, but it didn't answer my question. My question was, and you said you already didn't know, what is the taxable value of that property going to be, and the tax revenues that the city would receive if you put a building on that property?
The taxable assessed value, I don't, probably be about
What is
$12
your
million.
estimate, how much do you think the building's going to be worth when it's done?
Probably about $12 million.
$12 million. Okay. So at least that gives me a number to work with on a tax estimator to figure it out. Because it's important to know that. If you're asking us to give you something, what is the return to the city? And there is a benefit in you putting a $12 million building on, 35,000 square feet. To me, it doesn't, it's hard to imagine that you can do that. But it just, having that information would make it easier for me to say, well, maybe I can consider doing that if the long term is, $150,000, $200,000 a year to the city in taxes. It's a good concession to give someone for that kind of revenue to come back to the city. But I don't know what that number is right now. And I agree with the chairman that there has to be a couple of things put in place so that it's market rent and it's not affordable housing. I get that, because we really do want some market rent down here. And I have a problem deeding a property over to somebody prior to having an agreement put in place. There is no subletting or transfer clauses in the deal. I lived through the shotgun properties too. I wasn't up here on the dais, but I lived through all the rhetoric and all the issues that we had with that property. And I don't want to see that happen again. I'll reserve for now, Mayor. Let me hear a few more comments.
Thank you. Board Member Shelley and then Board Member Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I think I share the mayor's concerns. Again, the non-assignability, the market rate housing, conditions, that's definitely something I would want to see as this project were to move forward. I mean, overall, I struggle with this the density issue, the downtown, the high density. I know that that's something that we need. I know in order to make our downtown work, all other downtowns across, the spectrum, they have some sort of a housing component there to kind of have the live, work, play thing take place. But I still struggle just because it is a high amount of density, getting people to and from as you get one, then a second, then a third, then however many more of these possibly, fill in around our downtown to complement the commercial that we hope comes online. So I struggle with that back and forth as it is. But I do also acknowledge the fact that, as we talk about the cost of you coming in to potentially have to purchase the property versus is it the value of the property that it brings to us as far as addition to the tax rolls, what does that make sense? I do know that to get our first one in the ground invested, just like we did for some of the commercial, it is a risk for a developer to come into a town like ours that's still kind of on the verge and on the cusp of moving forward and hopefully being successful, that there's going to have to be some sort of incentivization to get them to make that investment. And so although I'm still not sure where I am overall on the whole concept, but I do think that if the council as a body believes that this is the way to go, and I do actually think it is what's needed, then I think that the first investor is likely going to get some sort of a benefit or discount or assistance in order to, as a proof of concept, get them in, get it built, show a quality product, which hopefully will then incentivize or encourage others to invest similarly. So I do think that that's something that we're likely going to have to consider. I do like Councilman Ross' concept of, what is that return on investment though? What are we getting on a year in and year out basis because of that investment that you're making? I also wanted to raise, I do have some concern about some of this litigation history that's been raised by the mayor, but also otherwise, I think that if we move forward with negotiations, that's something I'd want staff to look into, is to ultimately give us a report on any litigation that's involved this particular developer or any prior developments or any prior names that they've operated under. What has been that litigation history and what was the nature of it, and kind of make that as part of the report as you're giving us information. Just because I know that I have concerns the last time we entered into a contract with a firm that the research had showed had a history of litigation. It didn't turn out well for us, and it ended up in exactly what it was, which was more litigation. And again, a lot of times these things are explainable, but I just want to make sure from our due diligence standpoint that we can look at it, assess it, and determine, is this a pattern that we need to be concerned about, or was it a one or two time thing that really has, just occurred in the course of business? And so that's kind of where I am. I'm comfortable with the concept of getting more information and maybe seeing where this goes, with the understanding that I think that we also as a council need to figure out, what do we want this downtown to be? What is our density level comfort? Because we're going to have to rezone for density anyways. I think you said it's 15 units now. They're looking for 40 units. There's been other developers I know that have come through our doors that had conversations that won't make ends meet for them. They're wanting something, 70, 80, 100 units an acre. And so somewhere in there, is a discussion that we need to have and figure out, what are we comfortable with? What do we want the downtown to look like, and how much housing or density in the downtown is necessary to make it successful, and can we live with? And I don't know that I have an answer for myself yet, so I don't know if the body has an answer, but I do think it's something we need to figure out, so that as developers come before us, they have some clarity, and we can make sure that they get what they need, and we end up in a mutual win-win versus them not understanding, they invest, and then we change our mind along the way. So just some comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I also appreciate you taking interest in this odd piece of land, and especially kudos to the architect. I mentioned during our meeting, I really appreciate and can understand how so much goes into trying to figure out the structural and all the other components. It's tough enough when you just have an open area and you can kind of decide everything. So on one hand, I would love to see a building that looks like that on Flagler Avenue. I'm just picturing everybody lining up for the parades and just really giving Flagler Avenue new life. There's a lot of little businesses, some restaurants in there that would really benefit. So on one hand, those are my main pros. And then on the other, just like you mentioned, it's always hard getting that first person in there. So I've also been more of the mentality of holding on to our land and just really letting Homestead Station do its thing, get a couple more places in here, and the snowball effect is going to start. So I would agree that if I could figure out a little more of what this tax base means for us, as long as I see that we would make something similar to the $450,000 back within a few years, because I know you are taking a risk with the land, I'd feel much more comfortable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board Member Roth.
Thank you, Mayor. The amount of units would have to be greater than the 40, just based on the square footage of this lot. Mr. Cordino, is that correct? The square footage of the lot is less than an acre. So if we were to change the density for this particular property, or if we wanted to look at the entire busway or within a area of the busway to increase the density, it would have to be higher than the 40 for this property to work.
Yes.
So we're looking at maybe 50, 55 units per acre.
Yeah, I don't know the number offhand, but I think maybe as close. I think the allowable density is about a third of what this project proposes. So you may go up 2/3 higher. You may go up two or three times higher than this to fit.
Yeah. So I mean, that's something to consider depending on how we, as a body, see the residential component of the downtown area in the future. So I used the number you gave me, the $12 million, and ran a tax estimator. If the number is correct, the $12 million value on the building, and that's what you're going to be taxed at, the total taxes would be $266,000. Of that $266,000, the city would receive $77,000 a year. So you can see that a property that is generating $0 for us, if the value is correct that you're giving me, would generate $750,000 over 10 years. That's a little bit more attractive then let's just give you this piece of land and we get nothing for it. So, but that's just a fictitious number at this time because there's no guarantee when you put this building up that the county's going to assess it at $12 million, and there's no guarantee if they do assess it at $12 million, you wouldn't dispute that as well, based on your calculations for construction of about, what, 6 million?
I mean, typically, it's going to start at cost, and as it gets reassessed, it'll.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's all I have from here.
I just, jump in on your rationale, though, as I pointed out, that appraisal at 450 is predicated on 15 units per acre.
Right.
If you extrapolate that out to this 40 units, that would take the land to 1.2 million, which is a whole different type of calculation. And that's just, for talking purposes, assuming that everybody's numbers are legit. So, to say that it's worth 450 is overlooking the potential density enhancement by 2/3 here. So, yes.
Just to clarify, Mr. Mayor, it's 405.
405,
Yes.
okay. So even, well, even so.
Can I just add that not all 0.77 acres are alike, so size, shape, and where, location matters, and just, no disrespect, but if I have 0.77 acres in a square that I can build, I have a little more flexibility in how I can build and build cheaper. It makes it more valuable to a developer than having to be confined to a certain shape, and that dictates the design and costs eventually.
Okay. Board Member Bailey?
Thank you. Sorry, one last thing, just something for us to keep in mind. I think it's important is, personally, I wouldn't like to see a 4-story building along other areas of the downtown. This one I think is more, it'll tie in better with having the station right across the street. You've got the busway on one side and, I'm drawing a blank. What's the road? Flagler, and Flagler on the other. So, driving down Chrome Avenue, I would not like to see a 4-story apartment building. So as far as the density is concerned, I think we really need to look at this as just one small piece of the puzzle and not think about it as something that we would do throughout, because that I wouldn't be okay with. So that was just a thought going through my head.
Are you talking in terms of density or height?
As far as density, right. That, although it does sound really high, 40 units per little less than an acre, with this specific parcel, I've tried to think what else could we visualize having there that could hold its own next to Homestead Station and be a great addition to having the busway right next to it. The station's going to be a block away. So just something that I wanted to share.
If I might offer an example, so I've been in Delray Beach for 20 years in development, and originally 18 years ago, when there was no residential in the downtown district, and we have a 30 unit per acre, 3-story maximum height. The first residential building, which is Worthing Place, was proposed, and they had to raise the density to 95 units per acre to make it work in the downtown, but it was the first time rental residential was built in the downtown district, and that really kind of jumps. It's never happened again, and there's still people that do feel that was too dense, but it doesn't feel that dense, and it did jumpstart it was built as a 5-story building. It was a little bit excessive to where we are today, but it was the start, and none of the projects preceding that after that were ever anywhere near that type of density or height. This is an example, and I understand your concern because I've seen it, and I've seen it as it developed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Don't get me wrong, I'm very excited about the project. It's more about protecting the city and its interests. This has been a vision of most of us to create a downtown that's full of life, full of, people, and just to revitalize what has been dormant for 25 years is exciting for me. I can't speak for everybody else, but, there's many more plans that are for the area, but I think the most important thing is we bring some life into the area. We'll get past this. This is part of the growing pains that we'll go through, the unknowns that we'll learn as we progress, and we'll have questions about this a lot. And I'm excited about it. And it just, you got to help us understand that if this is what we want in our city, that there are some concessions that we have to make as well, and I get that. I've always, as long as I've been sitting up here, as long as this plan's been in place, is we've got to find residential component to the downtown, because without it, who's going to, what's the draw? But if you put people in the area, then all of a sudden, life is there, and we just don't have that anywhere along, really, Chrome Avenue. So I'm excited about it. I'm sure we have more questions. I'm not sure where we go from here at this point, Mayor, as far as direction to the city. I'll let you guys figure that out, and then we'll move forward and vote on what we got to vote on. Thank you, Mayor. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Well, my final concern would be, is that if we're talking about a wholesale increase of density and revisiting that, I really think, due to our geography and what's going on right outside of our boundaries, we have to recognize there's a lot of privately owned land, and we are opening the door for being swamped with subsidized type housing in and near our downtown. And once we do this, how can we say no to someone else? We're in a very difficult situation. And, I want to agree with you, Mr. Roth, on your comments about making accommodations and bending over. And it reminded me one time about a metaphor, so don't hate on me for this because this came from a Baptist preacher. He said, I'll bend over to help you, but I won't bend over backwards for you to abuse me. And I feel that's kind of the bend over frontwards for you to abuse me. So I kind of feel that's like where we are. But to your question, Mr. Roth, I think we're in a similar posture as we were with the last proposal. I think from the tenor of the conversation, we've given staff the direction for some parameters of what kind of negotiation they would like to do. The question is whether or not we are going to give them direction to try to proceed with this project, with this proposer for this product. And I think that would be my idea of what the motion would entail. So, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me ask this question, though. The density is a concern, and I think if we're going to ask staff to go forward, maybe there should be at least a consensus of, do we feel that we need to do this? Do we want to do this? Or do we need more information? Because you bring up points that there's land all the way across the busway that is inside the city and outside the city that could potentially fall into this category. And next thing you know, we've got 6-story buildings going everywhere, and we can't stop it. So how do we address that? And do we have, or do we just say this is the project we want to go with? We'll bring back the site plan, we'll bring back the density issues, we'll bring all that stuff back, we'll push it forward, but we can't allow it anywhere else for now to see how this works. I don't know how that works out in the future, because I'm excited to see if this actually comes up and gets out of the ground and how successful it is and what does it bring with it in the future. But I don't want to go through 4 or 5 different exercises and delay through the process if we can't even come to a consensus now that we're going to go ahead and allow a density increase for this one property to experiment to see if this actually works. I mean, I think that's a fair question to ask everybody, because if we're not going to agree on that, then what's the point of even asking staff to negotiate if we are not going to give this opportunity the density it's going to need for this moment in time. So maybe that's something to think about, talk about, discuss while we're here, or not. I mean, I just don't think if we can't get to the density issue on this, there's no reason to even go forward.
Well, it seems to me that implicitly, by moving this forward, we would be giving our consent
Think so?
to density
Okay.
of that magnitude at least for that location.
Okay.
I mean,
If I may?
Sure.
Thank you, sir, appreciate it. Again, 40-plus years of dealing with lots of unusual sites. We did some analysis of how many units could fit to compensate for the extra expense of even putting the parking underneath that there right now. I have a parking lot. And for us to look at the ability to construct this in a more efficient way as possible, I don't think there's really much precedent here in terms of what other sites are going to be. I haven't really been asked to try to fit something like this on a piece of property like this before. And my first impression was, I don't know about this. We asked for a survey so we can be very accurate, and we got one, so we're very confident in how it fits. But I think you would not have much risk in the precedent that you're setting here for this unique special piece of property with no other buildings around it as an issue with setbacks and so on and density. That's just my offering for today from an architecture standpoint of trying to actually accomplish something over top of your current parking lot as it exists. Does that? Well, yeah, but I think the location is really what you have there. That's terrific. And been down here a number of times walking around and going over there. The facility there is really, I think the mixture of uses in Homestead Station is, I think, great, and a lot of diversity of attraction there. And I just think people would like to be right here. Just thank you for letting me.
I've got Mr. Shelley waiting and then Ms. Bailey.
Thank you. No, I mean, I think that's ultimately the ground question that we as a council need to figure out before, this development or any other development. Because I think what we'd end up having to do is ultimately, as part of going forward with this development or any future development, is we'll have to create essentially a downtown master plan, and that would include the amount of density that we would want within a geographic region that we would be able to establish ourselves, correct, City Attorney? I mean, we'd be able to say, okay, within these parameters, these streets, we will allow for a certain different density than we would allow anywhere else in the entire city. And so I think first and foremost, we have to figure out what is that density, what are we comfortable with? But ultimately, I think in order to get density downtown, I mean, from talking with staff, from talking with other developers and doing some research, they're all going to want density equal to or likely greater than what this particular developer is looking for. And so if our goal, or if we have determined that in order to make the downtown function, we need some form of living quarters or residences, we're almost going to have to go down this pathway, and we're going to have to deal with some density of this level within at least a small geographic region. That's something I personally haven't been able to wrap my head around, just because I'm not a big density fan, never have been anywhere. I know from a factual standpoint it's necessary in order to be successful, and in order to make the downtown work, and in order to get a developer like this one to invest in our community. But my heart also doesn't necessarily like the density, and so I struggle with that. But I think we as a council are going to have to figure that out, because before we have them put a lot of money and time and effort, and staff put a lot of time and effort into, we have to get past that threshold question, which is, are we okay with density, or essentially, do we want density? If we want density, where do we want it and at what level, knowing that we'll have to get to probably 50 units an acre or higher in order to make that work? And so that is a threshold question, whether it answers tonight, or whether it's part of a future discussion, but we do need to get to there, because what will happen is we'll start to scare away these types of developers who are wanting to invest in downtown, who we want to possibly invest in our downtown, but our indecision up here or lack of clear pathway will cause them to leave and find another downtown, and we may or may not get an investor back in the future. So just something we need to figure out pretty quickly.
Thank you. Board Member Bailey?
I agree with.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I turned you on.
I agree that we definitely should set up some type of downtown plan. But I also do see this as just one specific part of our downtown. I don't think that this needs to go across the board. This is a oddly shaped parcel that the city owns. And like I mentioned before, I've thought, what other options would we really have? The other reason I like the more dense area for here is, of course, right next to the BRT, but it just also offers a lot less ways for Chrome to be congested. You know, there's just so many more ways to get out on Flagler to US 1. You've got Mary to US 1. So traffic-wise, I also thought about that. If this were on another corner and people were using Chrome more often, I'd be a little more hesitant. So as far as the plan, I definitely agree. But I just can't help but think this is such a good balance to Homestead Station. So
Would you like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion.
Please proceed.
May I ask a question
Sure,
for the motion?
sure. Let Vice Mayor weigh in.
So at what point will we determine the return on investment back to the city? I think Councilman Roth articulated it very well in that we are excited about the project and the fact that it can create that livable, walkable community, but we also have to be able to protect the city and not just give away a property. There will have to be some concessions, but we still need to determine what is going to come back to the city. So at what point can we determine that?
Turn the mic back on, it keeps going off. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, there's an economic impact and economic value being price, but there's also, you know, there's the intrinsic value, there's the economic impact that's not so identifiable that I think is very important. That to me, as a retail developer, knowing that you have 30,000 feet of Class A retail that you've built on spec, which is beautiful, having the leasing process is it sort of marries that leasing process to have some residential that doesn't have to rely on driving into the downtown, creating traffic and parking, but can literally walk and enjoy the retail both on Chrome and in the new retail space. That's a real incentive to potential tenants, and you know, and also for us as a residential manager, it's also an attraction to our residential tenants that they can walk to, you know, to retail and restaurants and cafes. So it does work together. A lot of that economic benefit, it's very difficult to measure, and we've been involved together in some public-private partnerships where we had to determine the economic impact that it brings, and the hardest to really figure out is the intrinsic value that you can't quantify with numbers, and that's I just kind of want to point that out. I understand I can't tell you that number, but as a retail, you know, developer who does lease up retail space, I know that the importance to have to rely on having some residential walking traffic is really a big attraction. That's
Thank you. Ms. Bailey, before we go forward with the motion, I think Mr. White needs to weigh in as well as Ms. Driver.
If you authorize the city manager tonight to begin negotiating an agreement with them, what we can do is do an economic impact study and have that be a part of the agreement that comes back before you for your approval. So then that way you'll see the advantages or maybe the disadvantages of going into the agreement, and you will have you'll be able to authorize it at that time if that's acceptable.
Yes, I would like that.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Yes, Mayor. I just wanted the council to know that in order to realize this development, I heard that the developer had mentioned something time frame within 3 months going to site plan. But just so that everyone's aware, in order to realize this type of development, there are a couple of things that will need to be done first, and that'll be we'll need to modify the comp plan, the actual text of the comp plan, because that stipulates if you're downtown mixed use that it's 15 units to the acre, and there's also some criteria with respect to the maximum amount of lot coverage that you could have that would need to be modified. as well as the zoning land development regulation that deals with density, as well as a rezoning on this property, because the property is currently government property, and it'd have to be rezoned to a category that would allow for this residential development consistent with the downtown mixed-use future land use category. So those are things that need to occur before we even get to the site plan process. And so I can, with your staff, structure that however you like, but we probably need some direction because I think that'll be essential for moving forward with any agreement. How you want to proceed with that if you choose to.
Thank you. Mr. Shelley?
I guess a question while James has his mic on, and that is the question of can we only grant the density for this one particular parcel? And if so, how would that look? Because my feeling is that we're going to have to come up with an overall plan, and whatever we do for them, we will do for ultimately others. I know my own way of dealing with things. I mean, I'm going to treat everybody equally and fairly, so I'd have to come up with some reason why I'd make an exception for them. But for purposes of just statutorily, is there a way in which we could grant them 50 units an acre and then deny any additional density over 15 units of acre anywhere else? I mean, or does it have to be done holistically?
Well, the way that we would have to approach this is we would have to approach it by creating some sort of overlay,
Right.
Spatial separation, location requirements that would get the benefit of having a higher density. And so we would have to establish that in the comp plan and then mirror that in the zoning regulations. And that would lay the groundwork for then the zoning application and the subsequent applications that would be required.
But it would have to be a larger geographic area than one parcel, though. I mean, we might could do a block.
No, we could narrow the scope of this.
Okay, to almost a one parcel if we chose to do it that way. Okay, so that's good information to know. And then as far as the overall, as a motion in a second, and once we get to some sort of direction for staff, I mean, I don't know that I'm willing to go all in and say this, let's try to get a final vote on this next time we see it. I don't know that we're there yet. But I'm willing to let staff further investigate. I'm willing to let staff further develop it, get us more information on the financials, the economics, what it would look like to move it forward, all the legal things that James is talking about from a P&Z perspective. Those things I'm willing to let this thing keep moving down the pathway because there's a lot of information here I don't have, so I don't know what my ultimate decision is on whether I'm for it or against it. But I know that I want more information because I think it could be a good thing for the downtown. So that's where I would be on the motion. It would be more or less, let's get this to another phase with a little more staff time put into it, a little more back and forth, a more concrete plan, a term sheet maybe, that then I can evaluate and determine, does that make sense to then say, okay, let's take it to the third step, which is more, next time we see it may be in a final format. So
Thank you.
that would be my feeling or desire.
Oh, and before we go to motion, if it goes forward, I would like to see the proposer bear the burden of whatever cost recovery there is for all of these land use approvals that are going to be necessary for this extraordinary density. And that's not answering the question or deciding that we're going to transfer it for that nominal amount. It's that the city should not, in my view, bear the burden of the cost of those code changes, comp plan changes, and rezonings that may be necessary. That's going to have to be something that, in my view, needs to be absorbed by the proposer. Just a thought. Okay, so, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Shelley.
I don't disagree when it comes to maybe the specific parcel related to rezoning or something that's aimed at the parcel. But I think, again, this comes down to we need to establish what our overall goals are for the downtown. And so if a residential component is part of that, those are ultimately going to be initiatives by us as a council to make it more development friendly, potentially, to get the products and the development that we're looking for or trying to entice into the downtown. So I think there is a balance here, figuring out what is it we want as a body, and then what do we need to do to accomplish the goal to get that. On the other hand, we may decide that this isn't something we want, in which case, yes, if someone comes through, then the burden's on them and go forward. So I think there's a little, I'm not sure exactly where I feel on that 100%, But I think it depends on what the body figures out they want as a goal, and then how do we get to that goal?
And it would be my perception that that's something that will probably spring from our further moratorium discussions.
I agree. I think so
I
as well.
think that's where that discussion will be held. That's my hope. Member Bailey?
Okay, how are we wording this?
What you said.
Make a motion for staff to get
For-
back to us,
Further negotiate?
further negotiate, and take up this discussion again next month.
Second.
All right, it's moved by Board Member Bailey, seconded by Board Member Roth. And, the manager, did you have something you need to weigh in on before we go forward? I'm sorry, I didn't see your light blinking there.
No, actually, I was going to wait till you were done to just clarify what I think you're asking for.
Okay,
Thank you.
so let's do a roll call.
Board Member Roth,
Yes.
Board Member Shelley, Board Member Bailey,
Yes.
Board Member Avila, Vice Chairwoman Fairclough Staggers, Chairman Lossner.
No.
Motion pass.
Okay, so, Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. So the motion was for further negotiations. So what I'm hearing is that you would want us to come back with more information on the financials and the value to the city going forward, and also details on what the zoning challenges would be, and perhaps a term sheet for what they're willing to do.
Is that,
Yes, if I can add one thing, if staff can look at how far that piece is from the actual BRT station, that might be something that we can easily fit into, that we would allow that density only if it's within, because it is extremely close. See what the surrounding areas are, if it would affect any other land, and that might be an easy way to clarify the density.
thank you. Is there anything further to come before the board tonight? Mr. Shelley? There you go.
Just, I also still wanted some sort of breakdown of the litigation information, history of litigation and all that. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further to come before the board? None appearing. I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Move it.
Moved by Member Bailey, seconded by everybody. All in favor? All right.
Thank you very much.
Let's take 10 minutes and we will convene the committee of the whole meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you.